angels sing glory to the newborn King.
Hey out there, this is Friday, September 15th, 2017, and it's about 8 minutes before 9 in the morning here in Northern California. And today I'll get into a bunch of different stuff as usual, but I kind of wanted to make the theme contending with madness, widespread, pernicious, ubiquitous, pervasive madness. And I know I don't give a lot of advice on relationships because it's not my forte, so I kind of steer away from it. I do know the ins and outs, and I know the underlying issues. I know that one of the big ones for me is the monetary issue. I know that women like a guy to conform enough, at least to make a sufficient amount of money, and it's kind of not where my head is at. And a woman to me is much more important than money, and so the money thing I also see as a detriment to the soul. And people that don't understand that are at a great loss, but think that often that they are the ones that that know what's best in this matter, let's say. That the idea is to be successful as defined by the secular world and to fit in that regard. But remember, if you're feeding an unjust system and paying, and whether cost of living, okay, is one way you're conforming, but paying your taxes, to the government, I guess, is what to we the people, right? The Treasury, United States Treasury. Either way, it's still supporting the system. It's feeding it. And I have a crisis of conscience in regard to making money. Alex Jones had a guest on. I can't remember who the host was, but it might have been Rob Dew or David Knight. For whatever reason, I just can't remember. That doesn't happen too often. But Alex Jones was also there, and he interceded in the conversation, and it was this fellow they had on that had received a lot of consternation from something that he was tweeting or discussing on a blog or comment board, whatever the case may be. But it was about his views on depression and how they varied greatly from the definition of depression in the medical establishment. But he received a lot of hate mail, so to speak, and I don't believe it was warranted. I don't understand people that are into writing hateful, hurtful, bullying, whatever, belittling. It's just not my thing. I mean, I'm not saying I've never done it. Just blow off steam and, oh, well, I'm right. Pompous, self-righteous kind of attitude. But it's just not my thing. And so I just don't waste any time on it. I could barely remember the villains' names. So this Debbie Wasserman Schultz is one of those names that I commonly forget. This woman that was heading up the TNC, and she might be still doing it, but she's been under investigation, and a very fishy character. But anyhow, I don't want to digress too far into. I was just talking about how I don't remember villains' names. Typically, I try to forget the bad guy often. But now, regarding depression, there's so many facets, elements, components to this sadness, this overwhelming sadness to where people can't function, they can't cope. There is some chemical imbalances. It's pretty much been scientifically proven that sometimes just adding a little bit of this or that to the diet okay, because that's where it all starts. All these chemical compounds and drugs and stuff, it all starts with food. There, it's where they derive everything. It's herbs, foods. That's where all the medicine comes from. It's all stuff that God put into nature for our health. So there's things you can do nutritionally, and of course, a lot of people will tell you more exercise because of the fresh air. So when it comes to the body, yeah, there's specific things you can do to alleviate depression, I believe. So nutritionally and in terms of keeping fit. But beyond that, there's so many factors in just contending with a world system that's rife with madness and the accompanying sorrow and the discombobulation and the confusion and the ignorance and the indignation and the misplaced anger. It's just it's tough and it's depressing. I mean, straight up, as far as I'm concerned, the system is depressing. And there's something people have to understand. This thing about osmosis does not just apply to plants. It applies to human beings. We are inextricably interconnected, and there's no way around it. You can try to believe. You can say, "Well, I believe otherwise. I choose to believe otherwise. I believe that I can divorce myself from other people, people that are having a terrible time in the world, people stuck in natural disasters and war-torn countries and third world nations and the homeless people, even in America, a land of milk and honey. We're letting homeless people die out on the streets and all this stuff. If you're honest and your eyes are open and you're ready for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, it's traumatic, but there's no way around it. That's the point I'm trying to make here. You can't run. You can run, but you can't hide. You can't do it indefinitely. Okay, because we know that we're mortal, finite beings. Our existence on earth as we know it is limited, and it might be over today. And at that time, what do we have left? Okay, you don't have a body, you don't have any money, you don't have any possessions, you don't have nothing. All you've got is what's invisible. What's your soul? Okay, that's okay. This is why I always go back to the Bible to, help me to understand and explain these things. And, we're going to meet the one that owns us. We're created beings. None of us created ourselves. Who could say that we know how to create a human being except what instinct dictates? So we mate, we make children, but it's all a miracle. It's all a mystery. We can't, somebody have said, make a human being just by yourself. You can't do it. So none of us is an island into themselves. I know that's a famous book or movie, whatever. I didn't read it, but it's a famous saying, but it's actually biblically based. It's what is this? I just pulled it up. It's in Romans 14:7, but it alludes to this, that we're not living for ourselves. You can't. You can never find true happiness, true satisfaction, because the giver of that happiness and that satisfaction comes from above. So there's a lot of dynamic issues to what human beings are undergoing right now at this point in history. And this is wildly, acutely unprecedented times that we're living in. And Daniel, in the book of Daniel, which was reserved for the last days to be really understood, he talks about this running to and fro and the knowledge being greatly increased. And we see now, I mean, you can get from one side of the planet to the other side in a matter of hours now, right? It's about 12,500 miles and plane going 600-700 miles an hour. I mean, I'm not going to do the math right now, but yeah, in a matter of hours, we can get from one, as far as possible, okay, in a matter of hours. And we have the knowledge of the ages at our fingertips with the computer age. We're living at a very special time in history. And it's tough. I remember when I was a kid seeing this movie, Future Shock, in school. I can't remember what grade it was, but it was pretty young, probably sixth grade, something like that. But I don't remember the particular time. But yeah, I mean, we're all under a lot of duress, and what compounds it, makes it so much worse, is that these evil people that have hijacked, usurped reality, okay, we the people are not in charge of reality. That's a point. We've got a bunch of a-hole, idiot, evildoers, okay, that don't think twice about deceiving people, okay? By their fruits you'll know them, okay? You call a spade a spade. And these people, by their actions, are either complete imbeciles and they should have no power at all, or they are deceivers. There's only two choices there. The liars, dishonesty, okay? And the deceit and dishonesty go hand in hand. So these people will murder, they'll murder in mass. We know there's genocidal maniacs that often get in high positions of power. So this is all reality. This is all historical, factually based, what I'm talking about here. So we know they do things like the JFK murder because he was getting rid of the money printers, okay, as we knew them, the Federal Reserve. And so the mainstream media won't touch that subject anymore. I mean, just because they got our president, where is the American spirit to rise up and demand that at least his policies remain enacted? Okay, even now with Obama and this DACA thing, you see the resistance to overruling this. That was an executive order. That was not constitutionally based. But what JFK was doing was completely constitutionally based. And yet we don't hear anything about Executive Order 11,110, where JFK was supplanting the Federal Reserve with these silver notes, these silver certificates. You see, when it comes to talking about economic issues and blending them and conflating them with spiritual issues, I don't pull any punches. I play hardball because I see this as a very serious issue. I see this as the root of all of humanity's problems, all of them, all the social and the political ills, economic ills that we have in society. It's all because of Satan, and Satan would not have any power in this world, the spirit thereof, whatever. These evil people I'm talking about and their behavior that create the policies we live under. If it wasn't for money, okay, and we have to at least all be honest enough. I mean, if you expect to inherit a better world, you need to be ready. You need to cultivate that world. You need to start preparing yourself, your heart and your mind, your spirit, your soul, everything, that your body, all your whole essence, okay, for a world that is as you would have it. Okay, it's not up for anybody else to tell you what that world's going to look like. God gave you your own special connection, your own special relationship, your own special ability, imagination, thought processes to deliver you to that place, okay? Because that's a place I want to go, and that's a place I want everyone to go. And I need everybody to see the distinction between this crap hole we call a reality and what we could have, and why it's the way it is, and what we can do to change it. But there's the only explanation I can have for Satan having all this power over us goes back to the Bible, the original sin, the fall of man, the knowledge of good and evil, this subsequent curse that befell the whole planet and all creation, the power that this evil got from deceiving us. It was powerful. And God was pissed off, and he wished he didn't even create us for a period. He didn't give up on us. He put a plan into motion that took these thousands of years to work itself out. And we're living at that period where a lot of people believe the end of the age, and which means that we'll have the close of one age and the beginning of a new one. It'll be a seamless occurrence according to what's written in Scripture. That's where the whole rapture comes in. This is that in the twinkling of an eye we will be changed idea. So it's going to happen suddenly, where the mortal body meets the immortal. So this is where this generation that never even tastes the first death comes into play. This is why people, so many believers, they talk about the rapture. The term rapture is not in the Bible, but this is where it's derived from, this idea that we will all be changed in the twinkling of an eye. And you want to be ready as possible, so it's least traumatic. It's like Jesus said, it's going to seem like a thief in the night for a lot of people. Suddenly, it's going to come upon them. And a lot of people aren't going to be ready. So I'm the guy that's saying, look, I don't want anybody's blood on my hands. So I've got this compulsion, okay, as fallen and frail and feeble and pathetic and sinful as a man I am. And I confess I am. And I don't like it. It doesn't mean I'm proud of it at all. I know I'd be a happier human being and have more joy in my life if I could overcome some things, believe me. And I know. And I depend on God's grace and mercy, like we all do, to forgive me time and time again and to take into account the circumstances and know that this is a form of self-flagellation. It's like, that line from the Rolling Stones song, you can't always get what you want. I went down to the demonstration. Why? To get my fair share of abuse. That's what we're all doing. This is this osmotic connection. We all are all, whether we like it or not, interconnected. Okay, psychologically, we are. We feel each other's pain because God created us to feel each other's pain. This is a fail-safe He built. So the conscience and all this stuff comes into play. The integrity, the honor, your soul, your true, that's your essence at the marrow level. What's that gooey substance inside of us all? That invisible, though. It's on an invisible level. But it's powerful. It's always drawing us and calling us to be all that we can